Maxwell.
Make sure you don't hit the ceiling. Watch out.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Welcome
Hi,
to Highland
Max.
Keep. Hey, this is nice, man. This is a nice place, y'all. I like it, man. I like it. I'm a little inebriated. You have to forgive me. I'm high. What can I say?
Hi.
It's a condition of being Max. Man.
Hi,
You,
Max.
That's what it is. I've got a little story for you this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you can all understand relationships. We all understand relationships. They're difficult. They're difficult from the beginning. They're horrible in the end, but in the interim, you usually have a really good time. This is a tale of myself in Florida with my cousin Frank and his father. I tried.
Where in Florida?
This was in Sebring, Florida, as a matter of fact. We lived in Frostproof at the time, and everyone asks, you lived in Frostproof, Florida? Yeah, no kidding. What was the town called? The town was called Frostproof. It's called Frostproof because there are two ponds. They call them lakes. They're pretty small, man. They call them ponds. They sit there, and the town is sit in between. So the temperature of the water tends to keep the frost off of everything, and it never frosts in Frostproof. Florida, mind you. Yes, they got palmetto bugs that freaking big. Ladies and gentlemen, they call them palmetto bugs. Ladies and gentlemen, when I got to Florida, I walked into an individual's house, and when I walked in, I saw a bug on the wall. A fucking bug on the wall, man. So, you know, this bug is that big. And in Ohio, when you got a bug that big, you are looking at a fucking enigma. You know what I'm saying? So there's the bug. I go walking to the bug, right? Because I'm going, that's the biggest roach I've ever seen. And I walk to it and it goes... And I've never been more terrified in my whole life. Never. Well, actually, with the nosebleed, when I thought I was going to die with UZAC, I was horrified. But really, other than that, I've never been that terrified. Had a bug flew off the wall then, I'd have wrapped an IV thing around my neck and killed myself. Anyway, I digress. Constantly. This is a story, ladies and gentlemen, of me and Sebring. My cousin Frank and his father were getting ready to go to the mall in Sebring, Florida. At the last minute, I decided to join them. I took a quick shower, and then we all got into my uncle's car. I usually do not go anywhere with them, ladies and gentlemen. It's far easier to be a hermit in life. When we arrived at the mall, Frank's dad wandered off to the bookstore. Frank and I found the coffee house and ordered ourselves a couple of double espressos. Then we began to wander the mall, hoping to see some pretty faces. Florida can at times be a showcase of tight bodies and pretty faces. Unfortunately, the pretty faces we saw had to be subjected to my Fu Manchu mustache and some odd-styled haircut Frank was sporting that could barely be described as new wave abstract postmodernism with a wing in the front. While displaying our uncanny ability to resemble two very backward hillbillies from God could only imagine where, I saw a young lady about my height behind the counter of a small jewelry kiosk situated in the middle of the mall. And as Frank and I walked past, I smiled at her ignorantly, and she winked at me. Holy shit! Did you see that? I asked Frank, and he said he missed it. Damn. What to do? What to do? This has never happened before. What to do? I don't get winked at, ladies and gentlemen. People don't wink at me. That doesn't happen. If I'm in the store, man, somebody winks at me, I think there's something like, I don't know, sabotage going on. You know what I mean? The place is going to blow, dude, you know. Not knowing what to do had taken up a lot of my time on this planet. And frankly, that knowledge did not help, and none of the soap opera episodes I had seen throughout childhood when I should have been in school answered this complex scenario. How should this be approached from this point? I looked at Frank helplessly, but the wing of his hair indicated to me that he would not be of much help. I looked back at the girl because in my frenzied state of mind I had forgotten what she looked like. She had long blondish brown hair, a nice trim body, and a pair of legs that should have been in pictures. How could I respond to a wink from something so attractive without disturbing its beauty? What words of genius was I unlikely to come up with? Should I apologize to her for Frank's haircut, and would she overlook the Fu Manchu fiasco entirely? How had I gotten myself into such a difficult situation? I wasn't even going to come to the mall in the first place. And now I had all these problems to deal with, and I was beginning to wonder who to blame for this. I wasn't prepared for this at all. Finally, I told Frank that I had to do something. So since everything I have ever done has been out of the ordinary, I went with the tried and uncertain again. I went to a Hallmark shop and bought a card that said hi with a happy face on it too, and on the inside it said your turn, and stood around with the card, wondering what I would do with it when I got home. I kept trying to shrug all that away so I could just give the card to the girl so that she could just ignore me and throw it away. You know, rather than have to put up with me standing there bothering her at work. No matter what happened, I figured I would be headed home anyway, whether I handed her the card or not, so going home with the card seemed a little bit silly. Frank wanted to try to understand where the problem with speaking to a pretty young lady began. He has always thought of himself as an intellectual, and here was an opportunity to explore blithering idiocy in its natural habitat. Where did these strange, obscure, and somewhat offensive fears come from? The young lady smelled so nice. How did his cousin obtain panic from this? He always felt somewhat awkward around strangers, and part of the rush was breaking the ice that first time, but panic was not one of the wonderful sensations his cousin ought to be experiencing. Therefore, it must be idiocy in its natural habitat. We stood in front of the Hallmark shop so long that Frank's dad came wheezing by, gasping for air, signaling wildly that he was on his way to the car before he died of waiting for us. Frank stammered about the girl and my card, and his dad picked up the pace on his way to the car. Frank's dad has always considered himself an intellectual, and later he would study the two fellows carefully to see idiocy in its natural habitat. But right now it appeared to him that the two had gotten lost in the tiny little mall, and were giggling at some girl. The haircut and the Fu Manchu fiasco were worrisome enough. It was time to get home before they hurt themselves. We watched him wheeze down the hall and turn the corner, and for a brief moment we were lost in the tiny little mall. Realizing that Frank's dad would definitely get in his car and drive on home, I was forced to give the girl the card on my way out. I signed my name and wrote my phone number on the card and gave it to her with a very red face and a smile and made it to the car before Frank's dad. To my great surprise, the girl called that night and said her name was Kathy and said that we should get together. The next day we walked through that mall together and enjoyed some coffee and conversation. We chatted on the phone and met a few times at the mall, and things were going fairly smooth for me. I felt wonderful and whole. Then one night Kathy called me, and we set a date at her house for Friday night. I hung up the phone and wandered around in a fog of myself until Friday morning. I woke up Friday morning feeling very thick and slow and lethargic. I had trouble focusing on the moment and accomplished nothing at work, which really didn't have anything to do with this. I don't really do anything when I'm at work. When I got off work at 1 p.m., started at 9, by the way, 4 hours, I went home and slept very deeply. I got up out of bed about 4 p.m. thinking that everything seemed all askew and my coffee tasted funny, but I wasn't sure that it tasted funny. I took a quick shower, dried off, got dressed, located my $20 bill, combed my hair obsessively until I was thoroughly dissatisfied with it, and locked the door behind me on my way out to my date with Kathy.